Today I want to talk about a tight feeling across your behind. This is something that happened when I was teaching the 3-day pants fitting workshop that I had, a couple weekends ago. And it's the first time it's happened in person with a student. So I'm excited to share this with you. And if anybody is watching this and you are tired of struggling to fit your pants yourself, I have a 3-day pants fitting workshop in the Nashville, Tennessee area the first weekend in August. I'm going to put a link in the description below for that. So if anyone's watching and they want to join me for that, it's a wonderful experience because not only do we fit pants, but everyone left with, 7 or 8 new friends because we're in a room together for 3 days and we get to slow down. We get to learn how to fit pants while we're fitting pants, and everyone bonded. It was such a great experience. I feel like magic happens in these 3-day in-person fitting classes that I teach. So if you're interested in that, check the description below. And now I want to explain something that happened with one of the students in the class. We were working with her muslin, and when she put her 2 legs together, she was telling me that it felt really tight just through here. So just along the center back seam from side to side. And a lot of times when things feel tight, you might want to let out the side seams and make things looser. And sometimes that in fact does work. But in this case, we adjusted her pattern for a flatter behind, and I just want to show you what that looks like on my paper pattern here. This sample pattern piece that I have has a slightly angled center back edge, and I'm just going to make it a solid line so you can see what I mean. I'm talking about this area right here. You can see it's got a slight angle to it, and that makes more inside room, right? So if you think of the crotch as a chair, when you sit down, all of this right here is the room you have to sit in. So with this student, we actually decided, we looked at her shape and we created more of a flat butt situation. So if I draw this, you can see what we're doing is we're taking away, I'm just going to color it in silver here. We're taking away some of the inside space and we're straightening the center back seam. We did that because, for looking at her from her side view, we felt that, the contour of her behind wasn't going to fill the pattern in. So we straightened the center back seam a little bit, which is very common for a flat behind shape. Then when we sewed it together and she experienced the tightness just right in here, I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe we made it a little bit too straight. So here's the great thing about this. If you're watching this and you're wondering, do I have a flat behind? Is it an average shape? If you're not sure, make the center back seam straighter. Because once you cut out your muslin, one place I don't add fitting allowance is along the crotch curve, right? There's nothing extra there. So if you make it straighter, you're actually adding fabric to the center back seam. And if you need to walk that back, you can sew deeper and get rid of it again. If you needed to straighten the center back seam and you needed less room, you can't add fabric. I mean, you could, but that's a pain. So my point is, if you're guessing about the shape of your back curve, and the best way to look is to look and see what the shape is or the silhouette is from the side like this. So if you don't have a lot of curve here, you need less room inside, and you would make your center back seam straighter like I did with the silver Sharpie marker. But then when you make your muslin and after you do your fitting and you get to the 2 leg stage and you're feeling like it's too snug here, but everything else seems to fit. So you could try letting out the side seams, but it may be that you needed some of that angle and you needed some of that shaping for your curve. So if that happens, and what we did in class was we actually went back, and I'm going to go ahead and use a different color so you can see. You know, I walked it back a little bit. I said, let's try sewing in a little bit deeper, right? So we took some of the straightness of that center back edge away, and we added the inside room, and it relieved the snugness that was right here. Just to drive this point home, I'm going to cut off, let's pretend this was cut off. Okay, so here's my pattern, and let's say your pattern looks like this and it's too tight, and I'm just going to go ahead and put my original seam line in here, right? What you would do is you would come a little bit deeper. My pens are running out of ink. Let's try this one. Come in a little bit deeper here, and then as I approach the curve, the original curve, I'm going to blend back into it. So basically, I'm going to sew a little bit deeper, like that, and you can see I'm adding all of this room, you know, between these two lines, right? And a little bit down here probably. You want to take this original stitching out to release it, and then see how it fits. So, you know, you can always sew in deeper. So this is how it would look like on your muslin. You would sew in a little bit deeper, take the stitches out, and try it back on. Now, what is it doing in addition to adding inside room? An angled center back seam is a dart, right? Because if I were to draw the other side of it, like let's say, you know, I'm going to put these two pieces together, you can see that the angle, and I'm just going to kind of guess on the angle, but you can see it would come off like that. So when you sewed it together, it makes a subtle cup shape for your behind, right? So if you adjusted for the flat butt shape, and maybe you need just a little bit more of that shape back, just try sewing in a little bit deeper along the straight part and joining back into where the curve starts down here. And that will give you a little more inside room, but it will also create a subtle cup shape, which will accommodate your curve. And the great part about this is you can try, you know, sewing in a little bit deeper. And if that doesn't work, you can sew in even a little bit more deep. So you can do it just a little bit at a time so you don't overshoot the right answer. And you don't need to make another muslin to do this. So when I'm teaching pants fitting, I'm always trying to make the choices that we could walk back without having to make another muslin versus, you know, realizing we don't have enough fabric and then we either have to sew a strip of fabric onto it or cut out a new muslin. I'm trying to make things efficient. So just to recap here, if you're not sure if you need the flat butt shape on your pattern, straighten the center back seam a little bit. That reduces the dart. It makes less room inside that your behind has to fill in, and it's easy to add some of that room back in and create a little bit of a cupped shape if you do need some of that curve. All right, so I thought this was just a fun thing to look at, something that happened in my in-person pants fitting class. I want to point out that some adjustments are not because of something visual going on in the pattern. This particular adjustment that we made was based on how her muslin was feeling. So keep in mind, sometimes you might put your muslin on and it looks great, but something feels off. And this is one of these subtle adjustments that you can do to give yourself more comfort in your pants. So if you have any questions or comments, please post those below and I will help you. If you're enjoying my content, consider liking and subscribing to my channel because it helps me grow. And I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to watch, and have a wonderful rest of your day.